Hey guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And yesterday, I attempted to read I think it was like 3 or 4 different meditations, and I only got to one, and it was so good and so powerful that I didn't get past that in the language of letting go. So let's get right into this. Let's see, what is the day? It's the 8th today, and I know there were like 3 or 4 different meditations about peace and serenity and happiness and all kinds of things I was thinking about reading. So let's see what today's is. And if I don't want to read that one, then we can go back and see the other ones, what they are. Okay, today's is surrender. Oh, okay, I have an interesting story about this, which I've shared a million times, but we'll talk about this. So surrender, it says March 8th. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 3 of Al-Anon. It's also step 3 of most 12-step programs. Surrendering to a power greater than ourselves is how we become empowered. We become empowered in a new, better, more effective way than we believed possible. Doors open, windows open, possibilities occur. Our energy becomes channeled that lasts in areas and ways that work for us. We become in tune with the plan for our life and our place in the universe. And there is a plan and a place for us. We shall see that. We shall know that. The universe will open up and make a special place for us. With all that we need provided, it will be good. Understand that it is good now. Learning to own our power will come if we are open to it. We do not need to stop at powerlessness and helplessness. That is a temporary place where we reevaluate where we have been trying to have power when we have none. Once we surrender, it is time to become empowered. Let the power come naturally. It is there. It is ours. Today I will be open to understanding what it means to own my power. I will accept powerlessness where I have no power. I will also accept the power that is mine to receive. And I love this meditation. And so the third step and the third step prayer, and I want to read you guys the third step prayer in recovery. I know it by heart, but I'm gonna read it to you guys here in just a second because it's really important to me. So the third step prayer, which is about surrender, okay? And for a long time, I didn't really understand this, that I didn't understand that it was, I thought it was about like having to give up all parts of myself. What I didn't realize at that time, and I have since learned, is that surrendering, this idea of surrendering to your higher power, or if you don't have a higher power, to the universe, okay, or to energy out there, or to God, or to whatever you believe in, okay, surrendering, which really doesn't even have to be, I guess, to a higher power, or to a bigger energy like the universe, is really just about you surrender to the idea, okay, and surrendering, let me look up actually the direct definition of surrender, because I want to see what I don't know when the last time when I first got sober, I looked up the definitions for all of these things. Surrender, to cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. So when you cease resistance, okay, you're ceasing resistance to trying to control things in your life that you really don't have any control over anyway, right? Like, I don't have control over these things that I'm trying to assert control over. That's why, we talk a lot about control and powerlessness and things like that in recovery, because control and power are a huge part of our addiction. It's a huge part of anything that we're doing addictively, or any sense of control that we need to have in our lives. Because there's a huge part of our life that feels like we can't control it, right? Unmanageable and uncontrollable. So we try to assert power and control into the things that we can. Well, surrender is letting go of that power. Surrender is ceasing resistance, okay? Surrender is stepping into it and saying, I can't do this anymore, right? Like, I've talked to my other channels and over here about, my past 2 relationships. There was a point in both of those relationships where, because I can remember it, like when we were getting ready to go to marriage counseling with my husband, and I can remember thinking to myself, is it over yet? Is it over yet? And I can always just remember thinking to myself, it's not over yet. It's not done. With my last 2 relationships, there was a point in both of them, and I remember the specific moment. I remember with my first ex, and I remember with my second ex, the specific moment that I knew it was over, that I just knew it was done, right? There was no reason to continue to try to control or have power in something that I couldn't have. It was almost kind of like I just stepped into it being over, if that makes sense. And at that point, as sad as it was and as disastrous as it was, there was a huge sense of relief that came over me, right? And, and so for me, like with my mom's sickness, that was a huge part of it too. Like, I was trying to control all these different aspects, and I didn't really have any control over it. It felt very, very unmanageable, it felt very powerless. And so if you've ever gone through that before, in your life with somebody that is, you know, my mother was comatose and things like that. When you go through that and you are in this position where you're making decisions for this person and you don't know like what are the right or the wrong decisions or whatever, you just kind of have to step into this moment of surrender, right? So the night that my mom passed away and she was taken off life support, I had my friend, this is another friend of mine in sobriety that my mom knew as well, and I said, can you, could you say the serenity prayer over my mother? Because my mother got sober 6 months after I did. And she said out loud, and I said out loud. And so there was like, a couple, well, there was probably 6 of us in the room, 7 of us in the room. And so she took my mom's hand. I've shared this story a lot. Like my mom was taken off life support, and then it just like things just stayed the same. And so she held my mom's hand and she started saying the serenity prayer. And as soon as she started, I said, actually, will you say the 3rd step prayer instead? My mother loved the 3rd step prayer. She loved it. And she loved the whole idea of surrender. And this is the 3rd step prayer. Let me read it to you. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondages of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness. To those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. My mom loved that prayer. I think in her life she tried to assert so much control and power over things that she didn't have any control or power over. And so for her, it was like a mantra of just letting go. We always in recovery say, let go, let God. And so when my friend started saying the prayer, I said to her, actually, will you say the 3rd step prayer? And she said out loud, and I said, yeah. And so she held my mom's hand and she said the 3rd step prayer. Now, this is powerful in recovery because in recovery, one of the things that many people do in meetings is when you decide to start working steps and get a sponsor, sometimes in that moment, like at my home group, one of the things that we do is we'll all get around that person with their new sponsor and we'll get on one knee and we'll say the 3rd step prayer out loud, all of us together. And it's a very powerful prayer to basically say, like, I surrender to everything. Like, I give up. I don't have any control over this anymore. And, I had all these people in the room that night saying things to me about my mom, like, just tell her it's fine to go, just whatever. And, she just wasn't. And so my friend started reading this prayer, we're saying this prayer out loud. And I watched, and as she neared the end of the prayer, one tear from my friend's eye, like, fell down her cheek and, like, dripped onto my mom's hand. And as she finished the prayer, my mom flatlined. It was such a God moment, it was such a God moment. And so, everything that night, I'm not going to get into that, I can share that story some other time, but everything, happened and everybody left and whatever. And I went back to my mom's house, this condo, and underneath her bed upstairs, she had several books. She had like her basic text from her 12-step program, and she had like a meditation book, and she had her Bible and things like that. My mom had a lot of it like dog-eared and whatever, but she only had one part, and she had a lot of it underlined and like notes written on the side and stuff like that. But there was only one part in her 12-step text that was highlighted. One part, okay? Out of 400 and some pages, one part. And it was the 3rd step prayer. And that just meant so much to me that night, It was like, in that moment, like, that she could just surrender, And when we talk in the 3rd step prayer about relieve me of the bondage of self, okay, that I may do better with thy will. Relieving you of your bondages of self is sometimes of letting go of that pain and that all that you can't hold on to anymore. It's not giving up. It's not giving it up. It's stepping into the knowledge of there are only certain things that I can control and I have power over in my life. And when you realize that, when you fully realize that in your life, right? Like you step into that knowledge. It doesn't stay with me always, but there's moments of it. And like this prayer is a reminder to me of that, right? Like when you step into that and you realize, I cannot control this. I cannot control that. In reality, I can only control myself and what I put out there in the world and how I respond to what other people do. I can't control disease. I can't control traumatic things that happen in our world. I can't control life. I can't control death. I can only control certain things, right? I can control my response to that. I can't control my reaction to that. I can choose whether or not I stay living in misery or I want to learn something from these experiences in my life. You know, I can choose whether or not I want to stay in anger, resentment, and hatred or practice forgiveness. I can choose whether or not, you know, I want to, I can't control the things that happen, but I can control my response. And that's hugely powerful. That's huge, right? When you think about it from that point of view, you have a lot of control. We have a lot of control in our lives over those things that we can do, right? We just can't control the things that happen to us. And at many times in our life, it feels like boom, 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 like all this stuff is happening to us, right? But when you look at it as a rainstorm that you're walking through, okay, and all these raindrops are happening to you, you can put up an umbrella, you can walk in the rain and get soaking wet, you can put on a coat, you can pull up the hoodie over your, you know, sweatshirt. There's many things you can do. You can walk inside. There's many things that you can do, right? You don't have to get soaking wet. Or maybe you choose to because you like the feeling of it. Or maybe you used to not like the feeling of it, but you've changed your mind and you like the feeling of it now. There's so many different ways to go instead of thinking that we can stop the rain. I can't stop rain, you know, at all. So anyway, that was a great meditation. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.